Okay, so let's focus then on the action button in the middle there. As you can see, it looks pretty horrible, but we can get that sorted out quite quickly. So we're going to focus on some animations in this particular video. So let's now start moving into the navigation component here. I've collapsed all this kind of stuff up and I've just left the close icon in view for now. So we're going to focus on that one here. So just choose that. On the right hand side here, just choose the little animations option and you've got two options available to you. You've got an on-page load animations, of course. So when the actual widget is rendered with inside the UI, then the animation can play out at that particular time. But the one that we're interested in is on action trigger. We're going to want to trigger this animation to happen at the time that we need it to happen. So with that selected, choose add animation. So the first part of the animation that we're going to add here is the fade. So we're going to add two animations into this particular section. Now, of course, we want them to play out at exactly the same time. So choose where it says apply a same duration delay. Just toggle that to be on. With the duration, let's set this as 200. And we're going to want to put a 200 millisecond delay before that animation actually kicks off. So just choose 200 here. And then here our fade is correct. We're going to start at 0 and then we're going to work at 1, so 0 being completely invisible to 1 being fully in view. And now we can also add in additional animation, so just choose add animation here, and this time we're going to want to set a scale animation. If you remember back to the demo, we're kind of bringing this X slightly larger into view. Okay, so when this animation starts off, it's going to start off at 0.7. okay, so it's going to be slightly smaller, okay, and then it's going to move out to then 1, which is then just the size that we've actually got with inside the UI. So you kind of got that kind of growth effect. Now, of course, what I can do is I can go up here and I can hit preview, and you can see that it just comes into display there if you look carefully. Now, I've got the apply initial state value set. We need that to be set because if we don't set that at this particular stage, then of course what's going to happen is the actual animation is going to be, the actual icon is going to be in view underneath the actual arrows themselves. Okay, so and we need to apply the initial state here, so that's really important to us. Okay, so that's pretty well much set for us there. So let's now focus our attention on the actual icons that the arrows that kind of go left and right. So let's focus on that now. Okay, so then with inside the arrows container, let's just select that, and we've got our left icon and our right icon. Let's focus on the left icon, just choose that. We've got the on action trigger selected, which is just what we need. Choose add animation here. Now the first one that we're going to want to add in is actually a slide. So just choose the little slide option here. And this is where we now need to set some various parameters. So we're just going to choose the apply same duration. Again, that's what we need to do. With here, we're just going to choose 200 again milliseconds. We're going to kind of keep it pretty uniform, actually, the animations in this particular application. We don't need a delay, so it's going to kick off almost instantaneously, but we just need to set some parameters here. So we've got our initial position, which is kind of where it is right now, but its final position, we need to actually set as -2. So you'll see how that's going to be important in a second. If I just preview that, you can just see now that we're kind of taking ourselves just slightly to the left hand side. Okay, so when this animation plays out, we want to have that look of that kind of arrow, so that it's moving to the left hand side here. So -2 will give us, of course, if we just change this by -7 and preview that, you'll see it goes pretty quick. So we only want to do a -2 here. So that's it, that's all that we need to, but we now need to add another animation in here. So just choose add animation, and this time we're going to choose a fade animation. So we're going to kind of want it to kind of just disappear. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to set the initial opacity actually opposite here. So we're going to say it's in view first, but then of course the final, it kind of fades out into nothing. Okay, so if I preview that now, you can see now I've got that effect of that animation just kind of moving naturally out and then fading away, which is what we need in this display. Okay, so now all that's set up for us, we just need to take the apply initial state off. Okay, we don't want to have the apply initial state here because that icon will pretty well much be in display straight away. So now we've got everything there that we need. What we can do, we now can copy this now. So we're just going to say copy all animations. We can move over to the right icon now. We can go to the animations, go to on action trigger. Let's paste all the animations in there. So we're all good. Let's just take that off. Let's apply the same duration. We've got it there, here's 200, but we need to make a slight little tweak, because of course we don't want our arrow that's going to the right to kind of go to the left. Okay, so let's just expand the slide out. Instead of this being -2, this actually needs to be 2. Okay, so we're going to move in a positive direction. If I preview this, you can see now that that arrow is now sort of heading in the right direction. So that is everything that's set for us for those particular icons. Let's move on to the next bit. Okay, so now we've got some of our animations set up. We're going to need to trigger those particular animations, but we're going to need to think ahead in this particular bit. Okay, so the whole idea of this particular series is to kind of show a series of options that kind of appear in this kind of position within inside our kind of our navigation bar. Okay, now we'll come on and do that at a later point, but what we need to do is we need to set ourselves up in a position where we're actually working out whether we're actually displaying those options or we're not, because of course we're going to want to change the way our animations work and whether we're displaying those options or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to the navigation component, and this is where we need to now create a local state variable. Okay, so what this local state variable, this is going to be specific to this particular component, and we just need to track whether the options are being displayed or they're not. So really straightforward. Just going to put this in here as is options, like that. It's going to be of type Boolean, so it's just going to be a true or false. True, of course, if we're displaying the options, false if we're not. We got here as a default field, it's in red here, so it's representing a false state. That's fine, that's all we need to do here. Hit confirm, and that is going to be all set up for us now to use within inside our logic, within inside our actual component. Okay, so let's now put this local state variable to some use. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on this action tap container. This is where we're going to now want to actually execute these particular animations. We're going to want to actually trigger them within inside our application. So the way that you do that is you say, you just with that selected, move over to the actions option here, choose the action flow editor, just open that up, and we're going to add in a conditional action. So just choose conditional action, and at the top here we're going to choose the condition that we're going to be checking against. So just choose conditions. It's going to be a single condition. We're going to choose the first value here, just select the unset there, and we are going to choose the component state, and this is where we're going to pick up this is options that we've just created. So just choose that. We're going to say if this is equal to then true, and hit confirm. We're then going to mean we're going to trigger animations in this particular direction, but of course if it's false, we're going to trigger in this direction. Now, if the condition within inside the UI and we actually say that actually the options are being displayed, then what we're going to do is we're going to move in this particular direction. So this is when the actual options are going to be displayed. So of course, if they're all displayed, we're then going to want to almost reverse animations that are actually within inside the UI. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to actually trigger the animations to not be in reverse, but to obviously carry out their actual trigger. So if that doesn't make particularly sense at the moment, I'll probably not explain that particularly well, but as we go through this, you'll see kind of how that kind of shapes up. So let's commence then by putting in our first animation. So we're going to move in this particular direction first on the false condition. So just choose the little plus here, choose add action, and I just always do a search for like anim like that, and it says widget animation, just select that, and we are going to select our first icon. So this is the left icon itself. So this is where, again, I was saying previously actually that it's always good to name your widgets because you can reference them in here. So of course left icon is the one we're going to choose now, and we're going to start the animation, and we're going to toggle this to a non-blocking one. So what this basically means is that any further animations that we actually put, or any further actions that we put in here, is not going to be blocked. Okay, we're not going to wait for this animation to complete, which is 200 milliseconds if you remember. We're going to want them to all execute at the same time. Now there's going to be some little differences at the bottom a little bit later, but in terms of for this, we just need to say it's a non-blocking animation, so that's good. Now hit the little plus here again, hit add action, just do a search for anim like that, choose widget animation, and this one we're going to want to select now is the right icon, and we're going to want this to also be a non-blocking animation. So that's those in place. Now what we can do now, of course, is we're now going to want to move into this particular direction. We want to kind of pop these over here on the left hand side. So just copy the action chain here, go to the plus and just say paste action contain. So what we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to do the opposite. So with this particular one selected, we're going to actually now just change this now to a reverse animation. Okay, so what's going to be important is this is when our options start to get collapsed, we're going to want to then reverse the animation and return our our animated widgets back to their starting position. Okay, and of course, as you keep toggling these options on and off, we'll keep going one way and then keep going the other way. So that's what the whole reversing of the animation will actually do. So of course we also then need to do the same thing here as well. So let's just change this then to a reverse animation. So let's also then add in the close as well. So let's just type in animation like that, widget animation, and let's now choose this one here, and we're going to do the close icon here. That's going to be start it, and this one is actually going to be a blocking animation. It's the last one that we got here. Okay, so we're going to want to wait for this one to be completed before we move on to the next bit. So just while we're here, let's just copy this, let's just go here, let's just paste that action in here, let's select that one, and then let's actually then just, oh, wrong one, let's just go to the reverse animation here. That's all that we need to do, and of course this is going to remain as a non-blocking one. So of course, once we are moving in this particular direction, so we need to reverse this is options condition. So of course, as we go down here, this is false. When we get to this point, we're going to want to then say, well, actually the is options is now going to be true. So if I just now go here and say add action, let's type it in state here. So update component state. So say add field. We're going to choose the is options because this is the only one that we got here. And of course here we're going to say this is going to be a set value and we're going to set it to true. So it's the reverse of false. Okay, so let's just copy this here. And let's just then paste this one in here, paste the animation, just select that. And of course, we're now going to set this completely opposite. So we can now work in this singular direction as we keep tapping on this particular sort of action within inside our navigation. So just one thing to point out as well, and one rule of thumb in the actual final application, which will be available to obviously download to sort of complement this particular video series. What I tend to do is I also rename these here. I actually go into the actions here and I actually come up here and I actually sort of rename these here. So you'll find that actually I've named all of these just so you can easily just see at a glance exactly which widgets I'm actually manipulating here with inside the actions there. So again, it's a good habit to be in as well, to really fulfill your FlutterFlow application with some good quality, because it's always good maybe in it might be 3 to 4 months you might come back to these actions, you might be scratching your head thinking, okay, well, what does that apply to? So it's a good habit to get into actually renaming the actual action blocks here to represent what it's actually doing underneath the covers. So that's pretty good. I think that is all that we need to do here. So let's now move on to the next bit. So I think we're in a good position now to actually have a little test of our animation. So you can see here that we've now got this, this X has now disappeared. Of course, that was why it was important to kind of make sure we applied the initial state, and that was actually then turned on because it means that it's hidden the little X that we got under here with inside the animation. And you can see now that if I probably click this now, you can see I've got the little pointer there. If I just select that, you'll see that excellent, all of our animations are playing out. And you can see here I've got that kind of reverse condition. As I keep clicking this, it just keeps either reversing or playing forward our animations. Now, of course, there's further work that we need to do here, of course, because we're not actually sort of rotating this kind of container here, this yellow container, but we are certainly making good progress now with inside our animation. So let's now move on to the next bit. Okay, so let's now focus on the action box in the middle. Let's get that rotating and working for our application. So back into the navigation component, we need to go to the action box container. Of course, it's inside the transform, and it's this action button container is the one that we need to animate. So we just need to make sure that we've got the animation selected here, choose on action trig and choose add animation. So this is where we're going to now work slightly differently, because instead of a number of animations actually playing out at the same time, we're actually going to need to stagger these. We're going to want to actually almost have like keyframes of our actual animation. So we're going to know we're going to have one that's going to go and then another one that's going to go, and it's all going to be based on the delays that we actually put in. So the way that we do that is quite simple. The first one we're going to put in is this rotate. We're just going to want to rotate this thing. Okay, so let's now change the duration. So the duration of our rotation will need to be 300 milliseconds. So it's going to be a little bit longer than the others, and the good thing about FlutterFlow is that I would suggest that around about 200, 300 is actually a nice duration in quite a lot of animations that you would use with inside your applications. So delay is fine. We're going to keep that as there, but this is where we now this is where it gets all a little bit interesting, because it's down to our initial turn. So we're going to start off in the 0 position to where it is at the moment, but our final turn we're only going to want to turn it just a little bit. So I'm going to put in here 0.125. Okay, now if I just hit the little preview here, you can kind of see that the square box certainly becomes more horizontal on that particular setting. So a little bit of trial and error as always with these things in terms of kind of well, unless of course you're really mathematically minded, you'll probably get it straight off the bat. But yeah, a little bit of trial and error, but you're there. So anyway, 0.125 will give you your kind of your rotation. And then next up, we're now going to want to play in now this additional animation. So we're just going to choose add animation. And on this particular one, we're going to want to do a scale. So just choose a scale here. Just going to scroll that down here so we can see everything. So the first scales are going to have a duration of 150 milliseconds. So because we set this as 300, of course, this particular animation is going to play out halfway through the animation of the actual rotate here. So you're going to kind of gradually get that turn, and then it's going to kind of get a little bit bigger. So the initial scale that we're going to set here, in fact, let's set the delay first. So the delay is going to be, I think it's 125 actually. So the duration is going to be 150, but the delay is going to be 125 during the actual the commencement of this particular animation. So the initial scale of this, we're going to set this as 0.83. Okay, and we're going to set this at 0.83, and then the final scale is going to be a 1.2. Okay, so it's going to make it nice and large. And then the next animation we need to add is going to be another scale. Now this one's going to have very, very similar settings. So we're going to go for 150 duration. So you can see here that we're doing 300 here. We got a duration of 150 here, and then we've got a duration of 150. And of course, both of those equal 300. Okay, so we know that this final animation is going to play out halfway through the animation that starts here. Okay, so it's 150. Now the delay now, of course, is now going to be 175. Okay, so it's going to play out part way through, just over halfway of the original sort of animation here at the top. Now with this, we're going to start this one at 1.2, so it's going to kind of follow on from this one here, 1.2 like that, and we're going to bring ourselves back down to normal size. So we're going to kind of get that, as it turns, we're going to kind of get that increase in size, and then it's going to drop back down to the actual final scale. And of course, when we reverse this thing, it's going to go from the reverse all the way from where it is right the way back up to then the original size within inside the UI. So if I just preview this now, you can see now that we're getting this kind of this movement, as you can see, which is just kind of how we want it. Everything else is on. We can keep the apply initial state here because that's not going to cause us any issues because everything is starting right off the bat. So we're all good there. So I think we are in a good position. Now let's go back over to the action tap container, and let's now add this widget animation in as well. Okay, so let's select the action tap container, just choose that. Let's move back over to the action flow editor, and this is where we now need to slot in our actual animation. So let's pop it just up the top here. Actually, just hit the little plus here, add action. Let's just move this up the top here, and now let's now set this. So just go to anim here, like that, choose widget animation, choose the widget to animate, and of course it's going to be the action button container, so just choose that. Now this is obviously going to start the animation in this particular direction. Of course it's going to be non-blocking because we want it to all happen at exactly the same time. So if I now just copy that, copy the action, let's just go here and let's just paste that action in, and let's just bring it up to the top here, just select it, and then we're going to obviously want to then reverse it there as well. And of course that still remains as a non-blocking animation. So of course when we now hit that now, hopefully we should see the turn. Let's just close that down. Okay, so here we are then in test mode. Let's hit our button, let's see what happens. Whoa, there we go. Excellent. So our animation's played out perfectly for the first time. So that's really good. Everything's working quite nicely for us. Obviously, there's a lot more work for us to do with this particular component, but we are certainly making good headway. So let's now move on to the next bit. So if you recall then in the final application, this is what's running at this moment in time. You can see that when I actually hit the little button here, you'll see that these options all nicely fade out. They're not available to us. So if I just bring it back in, you can see that they're in and they're out. So let's now start configuring those up to do exactly what we needed to do for our application. So firstly then, so on with inside our navigation component, let's choose the left option column here. Let's move up to the animations itself, choose the on action trigger, choose add animation, and this is where we now need to do an actual fade animation. So just choose fade here. Now we need to change the duration here. We don't need it to be that, would it be 300? We'll give it a little bit more of a delay. Instead of it being 200, let's give it 300, make it a little bit more visual with inside the UI itself. We are going to set the initial opacity as 1, so obviously it's going to be in view, and then we're going to set this to then fade out to 0. So that's fine to keep everything else as it is, but let's just copy the animation here. Let's move over to the right option. Let's go here. Let's go to the animations here. Let's go to on action trigger. Let's paste the animation in because it's going to be exactly the same. So I just hit preview. You can see now that it just fades out nicely. So of course, now we can go back into our action stack. Let's go to our action tab container, and we can now start applying the animations that we need in there. So just go to animations and go to, oh, sorry, go to the, I'll get in the right place, go to the action flow editor. There we go. I've been here way too long. So right, there we go. So we're in here. So of course we now need to now put the animation in here. So we can put this pretty well much anywhere actually. Let's put it just at this position just here. So it's just before the actual non-blocking one that's being turned off here. So let's now just go here, just go copy action, go there, and let's go paste animation. Let's just select that one here. So of course we now need to choose the right one here. So this is going to be the left option column here, and we're just going to start the animation, and of course copy this one here, and let's just go down here and let's just paste that animation in. So it's side by side here, and of course the left option column is now going to be reversed. So of course let's now just copy this one again. Let's just paste this one in here, paste action, and down here we can obviously set now the right option column there, and we can then now just copy this one here, go up here, paste action, go here, and then obviously here we want to then reverse the animation. So that should be good. So I've got all those in the right order, I'm hoping. Yeah, good stuff. Excellent. So we can now go and now simply try this now. Actually go back into the test mode here. Let's go here. Let's just do an instant reload. Okay, let's now choose the option here. There we go. Fades out and then fades back in again. Excellent stuff. So that's all looking nicely from an animation perspective. There is still some further functionality we need to actually apply to our actual buttons here, because actually if we actually have these actually faded out, if I actually move over, you can actually still select the options here. So we want to correct that. We don't actually want the user to kind of click between their pages and kind of reset everything. So let's quickly go and sort that out now. Let's go back over to our application, just close that down there. Let's now move to those particular options. I'll just close that down here. So with inside the left option, it's the graph icon button. This is the one that we're going to want to control. So let's move over to the actual actions here. So the properties, just move down here, and we want to now set this disable option. We want to actually disable the button, okay? And we need to disable this when the options are actually displayed. So is options equals true? It's that variable that we set earlier. So just choose the disable here. Let's select this unset here. Let's put a condition in. Let's say conditions. So it's a single condition, go to first value, select that, and then of course we want to move down to component state, and we're going to say is options. So we're going to disable this if it is true. So just hit confirm. That's good. Just select that again. Let's just now copy that because we want to apply it to the other side. Let's actually choose the right options. Let's go into the button itself here, and then let's now just go over to the properties, scroll to the bottom, go to where it says disable, select this here, and then just paste it in. That's all that we need to do. Just hit confirm. Now if I go back to the test mode and reload, okay, so I'm kind of hoping now that if I just then select the central button here, I can't actually click anywhere in here. So I've kind of corrected that problem almost in flight while we're actually doing it. So just bring that back, and of course these options are now selectable for us to actually choose. So that is looking like it's working just as we need it.